Thank you. I'll take this. Good morning, everyone. I don't know about that one. I'm the one that has to sing and dance for the next 25 minutes or so. How's everyone doing? Yeah? Okay, cool. It's a lot better, a lot better. So, I am Elijah. I'm very happy to be here with all of you, and I want to give a really warm welcome and thank you to all of you for being here today, as well as Jen, who is such a lovely light, and thank you for that introduction. And another round of applause for the entire Creative Mornings team that does this every single month. Every single month. So you are all here to hear me talk about stuff, right? Yeah, that's why you got out of bed this morning? Okay. I am being tasked with a very simple thing, just talk about the problems of the world in 20 minutes or less and how we can solve them, yeah? But some jokes aside, we are here to talk about a theme that is very near and dear to my heart, as well as the way that I move throughout the world. So I'm very happy and honored to have a platform and a space to kind of unpack a few things that allow me to better understand what this whole big behemoth beast of equality looks like. So, shall we get into it? Yeah? Okay, cool. I do want to say that I have a few housekeeping rules. Can we go over those really quick? Yeah? All right. So, if you want to just repeat after me, because on one of my many other roles and jobs, I am a cult leader. So if you just want to repeat after me, take some deep breaths. I will respect myself. I will respect my neighbor. And if I take any photos of Elijah, it will be from this side. And I will tag them in them. Okay, good. We're ready to go. Okay, did y'all wake up now? You're feeling it? You're feeling it? Okay, good. I love it, I love it. So as I was preparing for this talk, I obviously spent a lot of time researching and figuring out what the thing is that I wanted to talk about, and more importantly, how I wanted to chime in on this series, which then led me to just researching a lot of Beyonce videos, and I don't know exactly how I got there, but I must tell you I'm ready to do this, and let's maybe start with who this Elijah character is. So that's me. I'm Elijah. That's Elijah. It's baby Elijah. Not much has changed since this photo. I am a queer, Black, if you didn't know, non-binary baddie. And for those of you who don't know what that means, I am gender non-conforming, which means I do not subscribe to the things in which people tell me I should subscribe to. My pronouns are open and regal. He, she, they, queen, highest deity, goddess, you get it now. And one thing that's really important about this particular photo, and one of my first moments, or really memories of understanding like what equality means in my 3-year-old baby self, was my dedication to having my shirt open. Like, I fought both of my parents, and I really just wanted to have my shirt open. I think it had to do something with like expressing my little baby tiny queerness, or like owning my own body, I don't know, but I was so adamant about it, and so my parents compromised and said, okay, fine, keep the shirt open and put the boss hat on. I told you, much hasn't changed since then. Now, I'm really into roadmaps, and I want to kind of paint a picture of where we're going to go today, and want you to know, full disclaimer, I will not be solving all of the world's problems today, unfortunately. That is for you to do, all of us. So I will give you a little brief history of why I'm here and why I find the work that I do to be important, and why a few other individuals find some type of love and light within it. I will also chime in on a few ideas that I have about equality, as well as, more importantly, ways in which I find equitable solutions in my practice. And then I'll kind of wrap everything up with 4 short stories that are rooted in an understanding of the 4 projects that I am currently working on. So let's go to where it all began. Not at In-N-Out, but in California, though In-N-Out is very important to the story. If you haven't been to In-N-Out, it is a fast food chain in California, and now in various different other parts. I think it goes as far as Texas. Denasia knows, yeah, of course. And California is very much ingrained in my identity and taught me everything it is that I know about equality. More importantly, growing up in Oakland and San Francisco Bay Area, I was always curious and eager to explore different people, experiences, opportunities that didn't look like me, and or challenge and provided me with a deeper understanding of like how I should and want to move in the world. And this is what led me to pursue my current practice today. So what do I do? Well, I have a lot of titles because I'm a millennial and I can't make up my mind. And because I'm a millennial, I find it very difficult to stay focused. And also, I have to do everything so that I can try to get a job. You know, that's how you do it, right? I do every single thing, and then I am more hireable. And when I think about those things in terms of my titles, I like to kind of break them down by like day and night. So in the day, I'm a cultural producer and a brand strategist and possibly a marketing maven. And by night, I'm an artivist, meaning I use art and culture and activism to inject things into the world that I want to see. I'm also a dancing diva. You can find me at your local 4 a.m. bar twirling on the dance floor. And I am also the official, unofficial nap queen of Chicago. You can find me napping with my eyes open or closed. But when I think about my upbringing, California and the loss of my parents at a very young age, and my constant pursuit of equitable solutions and resource sharing are always at the core of my experience when I start to think about equality. And so, as I start to think about equality and I unpack it for y'all today, one thing that is very important is that although equality is something that is abstract and sometimes seems very difficult to reach, there are so many opportunities for us to form new concepts of what it means for equality to exist. And so, as I started to prepare this talk, I was like, I'm gonna give it to them. I'm gonna go really hard. I'm gonna tell them all about themselves and everything in the world, because that's what I'm here to do. And I'm really not here for that today. But I am here to talk to you about sort of the things that have made me better understand equality. And one problem that I have with the term equality is that most people are approaching it from a completely different perspective and not wholeheartedly invested in like a collective idea of what equality means. And when I start to define equality, one thing that I'm constantly trying to push myself to understand is not so much what the definition is, because I think that equality is more of the grain in the sandwich, right? I'm more interested in the protein, like what does the sandwich consist of? And for me, 4 things come to mind, and that is what I'll be talking about today. So those particular 4 things are concepts that have shown themselves in a way through the projects that I have been so fortunate to work on, and I will kick it off with trust. So I was fortunate enough to have lots of great opportunities fresh out of university. I've always been very entrepreneurial and starting various different things from a very early age, which is why I presented the boss photo, letting you know, just bringing that back. And I was working with an agency, and one thing came to mind when we were working on a campaign specifically rooted in serving Black communities. And I asked my supervisor at the time why I was the only Black person on the team. And to my surprise, I mean, I knew the answer to the question because I was like the token person to chime in on these things. And my supervisor at the time said, "Don't worry, it's okay, the team consists of people who care." And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I resigned a month later and I formed my own consultancy. And I named it People Who Care. It was, thank you. It was actually supposed to be a joke and not supposed to really go any bit further than me just doing some freelance gigs until I found a new job. And it has now developed into a consultancy that I work full-time at and have a wonderful team of folks that also work full-time with me on a variety of projects around the city, primarily serving grassroots initiatives and nonprofits throughout the city. And let's take a peek at some of those people who care.
This year, after the election results, a lot of people felt very hopeless, maybe feeling like, oh, how do you move forward?
Since I'm a journalist, I'm always trying to look for an angle that shows that there's still a lot of beauty in the world. There are things to be hopeful for. Art still matters, culture still matters.
Artists are needed now more than ever before.
The time has come for us to speak up about our needs and our value. That's the only way we're going to get what we want and communicate the beauty and the love that we really bring.
It can't just be about optics. We've got to move toward impact.
Focus on when to take a seat and when to take a stand.
One of the things I care most about is artists in the world being able to enact radical change.
I want to be in a world that is constantly asking why something is happening, how can they be a part of changing it.
I care about creating a world where people can afford to create beautiful things.
Really foster other people stepping into who they want to be and who they want to become, and like learning the things they need to in order to get there.
Communities based on race, on culture, on sexuality. I think we're going to need that more than ever.
I'm really interested in challenging all the dominant narratives.
I'm not interested in one narrative being the representation of everything that we get to tell and that gets represented in the media.
Something I'm really interested in leaving behind in 2016 is this feeling of not being good enough.
Self-doubt is something that I'm just like, it's got to go.
A feeling of like unworthiness.
Fear of failure.
We had so much fear this year, and I think moving forward, we have to be brave.
Myself and I think a lot of people that I know get a little scared when good things happen out of hard work. And so I'm trying to get rid of that and kind of step into this space where I feel like not only am I worthy of these things, but like I've worked hard for them.
I'm interested in 2017 and manifesting everything that I've created for myself in 2016 and believing that it'll continue because I'm worth it.
I care about choices and dialogue.
Sharing of stories.
Community and joy.
Fostering deeper connections.
Black women expressing themselves and community.
I think I'm really passionate about storytelling.
Queer people of color thriving.
Having accessibility into spaces of creating and art making.
I care about resource sharing.
I care about people.
Fair and fully resourced creative labor.
I care about supporting artists and making radical change in the world.
I care about resource sharing.
I care about people.
Fair and fully resourced creative labor.
I care about supporting artists and making radical change in the world.
And so, thank you. When I think about trust, the first thing that comes up to my mind is radical transparency and honesty. And I think that that can be presented in a lot of different ways, but one of the first ways is accountability. And I think that accountability looks a lot differently to people, but when I put it in my head, which you don't want to be in here because it's crazy, one of the first things that I think of is like, accountability is like responsibility's more mentally stable twin sister, and she's younger, you know, like, you think that responsibility is actually carrying the show and like has like the power and like really is like on it, but she's like the one that's sneaking out at night and has like bad grades, right? It's really accountability that's leading everything and is like the golden child, but she just gets snubbed, and it's okay. The reason why I think that is because accountability has this conditioning that is fueled around responsibility and taking on things. And when I think of accountability, the first project that comes to my mind is Reunion, which is a space. Actually, has anyone heard of Reunion before? Okay, some folks in here. I love it. I love it. Is a concept that I formed with my co-partner and partner in crime, Kristen Kaza, which is a studio space and gallery and co-working space in Humboldt Park prioritized for queer, femme, and POC-identified creative laborers and entrepreneurs. And one of the concepts and conversations that we had that really resonated with me was last year we were up against a really intense lease negotiation where our rent was in the process of being doubled overnight. And as a investment in our community as well as our own creative and professional and personal lives, this was a labor of love for us. It wasn't something that we started to, break the bank. And one of the things that we talked about that really rang true to me when I started to think about equality was the fact that when you are accountable to someone, you must be accountable to yourself, right? And that it has to start within. And when I was having a conversation with Kristen about the development of Reunion and the future of Reunion, one of the things that we realized that was constantly left off the table was how we were accountable to ourselves and how we were creating opportunities for other individuals to hold us accountable to the things that we wanted to see in the world. And not being scared to say that we wanted these things and that we wanted to fight for these things because they meant and have value to us. And so as I started to unpack sort of this understanding of what accountability means and how I am not only accountable to the various different communities that I represent and serve and share identities with, I'm more importantly invested in this idea of like, where does compassion lie? And when I think about compassion, I'm always thinking about how it's always in servitude to this individual or a group of people who are misfortunate. And I hardly ever hear compassion discussed in a way that isn't directly or explicitly showcasing some type of sympathy because of someone's loss in servitude to someone else's gain. And one project that comes to mind that I've been really fortunate to work on over the last few years is Open TV. And so Open TV is a web series platform that empowers queer, trans, and cis women artists of color to produce experimental content, short form, and web series. And as I started to better understand trust and accountability and how those kind of folded into my idea of this utopic vision of an equitable world, I remember loosely a conversation I had with another partner in crime. I have a lot of those, if you can tell. I really love just partnering up and taking over the world. Was a conversation I had with Amarjean Christian, who is the founder of Open TV. And over some lovely libations, we were discussing if Open TV was a brand or not. Now, to give you a backstory on the dynamics between Amarjean Christian and Amarjean Christian is an academic. I am not an academic. And so, as this being a research project for Amar and this being a case study for me, see what I did there? Completely different perspectives, but still the same end goal, right? Exploration. One thing that was really entertaining in that discussion was how Open TV functioned. And this is what led me to having a better and deeper understanding of equality, right? We, since day one, have formed non-exclusive agreements with all of the artists that we represent, as well as work with to distribute their content, meaning that if, for instance, you have a show called Brown Girls, and you sell it to HBO, in less than 6 months of its debut on a web platform, you as the artist get to create and keep all of the exclusive rights to that programming, because we are not interested in making money off of your talent. And when I think about the ways in which that conversation unfolded, words that stuck out to me were artistic-centric television, meaning that if we were to give people the power to innovate and create the narratives that they wanted to see in the world, they should also be able to own that content and not be utilized and or exploited for sharing those narratives in the world. And so I was like, I get it, I guess we're not a brand then, but I really wanted it to be a brand. But at the end of the day, one thing that I did take away was this idea of empowerment. And so empowerment is a fickle thing. It's an interesting thing for me personally, because I always find that the individuals that are so interested in empowering other individuals are having a really difficult time empowering themselves, I being one of them. So maybe it's just me, and it's in my head, like a lot of things are. And so when I think about power, when I think about empowerment, I also think about power and authority, right? Who has the right to say that they are empowering someone, and who, as a person in a role who doesn't feel empowered or feel like they have access to make decisions, get out of those situations. And so the final project that I'm going to talk about today is Prep for Love, which is, I don't know if anyone has seen the campaign before. Yeah? A few folks? Cool. Y'all are really on it. Y'all know all the things. It's like, why am I even here? I am very fortunate to be one of the core folks with, I'm sure if I look you deeply in the faces, I can see a lot of individuals who were also a part of the development of this campaign over the last 2 years. But it's a citywide social marketing campaign that increases the awareness of PrEP among young gay black men, black cis heterosexual women, and trans women of color. And so PrEP is a HIV prevention strategy that provides folks that are HIV negative with the opportunity to take a pill once a day to prevent them from becoming HIV positive. Also, just a little plug in there because I'm very proud of it. recently was voted and nominated as the best ad campaign in Chicago, unbeknownst to me. So thank you for voting, if you did. That's amazing. And when I think about the ways in which this campaign has impacted my life and provided me with an opportunity to deeply understand how empowerment works, as well as how I can empower others and empower myself within those very tricky, muddled waters, one thing that comes to mind is when I was working on the campaign, one of my really core decision-making opportunities as well as voices was that I did not want to use models. And that is something that deeply resonated with a client and dear mentor of mine, Jim Pickett, who is unfortunately in Paris right now and cannot make it, want their life. But I'm actually really happy to be here, so like, fuck Paris, you know? And we were talking about how we really wanted individuals from the community to represent this campaign, and more importantly, beyond just like be in service to us, right? Because when we think about empowerment, it's not like, I want to empower you so that you can work for me. It's like, no, I want to empower you so that you can go and do the things that you want to do, and hopefully, if you have time, you know, there's a little love in there for me. And so, when we were developing the campaign, one thing that we made sure to think about was the fact that if we're going to do a community open call, we're not just looking for people that are beautiful and have some type of traditional beauty standard. And I feel like I need to give you more love. We wanted individuals that were deeply ingrained in their communities and had, you know, not only amazing social followings or clout, we wanted individuals that were involved in HIV prevention or not, right? We wanted individuals that were actively involved in social justice or various different LGBTQ initiatives along the spectrum. And we wanted people that were down for the cause. Like, if you saw them in a coffee shop and you asked them about this thing, they'd be open to talking to you and maybe talking about the things that also empower them to do all the other amazing actions in the world as they move. And so when I think about that, and when I think about the conversations that we initially had when we were developing the campaign, one thing that sticks with me is that when you are empowering someone, it's not in service of yourself. It's for those other individuals. And so looking at that campaign and looking at the way that it has continued to evolve and have so many legs, largely in part due to an amazing team over at People Who Care. I'm going to shout them out because they do a damn good job at finding new and innovative ways to keep that campaign going. But also due to the fact that the people that are represented in that campaign are reflected and empowered deeply in that community. And so when you see them out and about, the individuals that that campaign was built for, it is not a far-fetch for them to feel like they have onus to govern their body and to have agency and to make decisions that deeply impact the communities that they represent and share identities with. And so, in a roundabout way, that's my idea of equality. You know, I think when we talk about equality, we're constantly thinking about balance, right? And how are we restoring a balance that isn't currently in place? And I do think that, yes, that is definitely important and should always be questioned and at the forefront of individuals' minds, especially that we live in this hostile climate. But I think moving beyond just trying to define what equality means and how you are creating equitable solutions for people that you either share identities with or you don't, one thing that I hope you leave with is a better understanding as to how you are going to find the protein within equality to better define and move forward into the future with some type of understanding that it doesn't end or begin with equality. It's something that lives in all of us and that we all have the power and opportunity to make decisions that are not directly in service of ourselves. Thank you. Maybe a drop the mic kind of thing.